This team still has plenty of infielders. Yes, they can slide India in, and they're okay. But are they a better team with Matt McLain and, for that matter, Noelvi Marte? No question about that.
Ken Rosenthal joining us right now, fresh off of the second live edition of Fair Territory, going right from Fair into this, into Dodgers territory. Ken, great to see you. And I don't know if you want to start this way, but you had Grill and Ken on Fair Territory. Any questions that stood out to you that we can kind of, promote a little bit? I saw some of them that were coming your way about rookies, and I don't know if you remember any that stood out to you, but you probably had 5 or 6 mixed in there.
We did, and certainly the question about which rookie I am most looking forward to seeing was an interesting one. I said Wyatt Langford, but I could have said Jackson Chourio. I could have said Jackson Holliday. There are any number of candidates. I could have said Paul Skeen, who's not up yet, but will be. So I believe Eric mentioned this earlier on the show, that this is the most talent the game has ever seen, and I can't totally scientifically verify that, but certainly that's my sense, that we are at a point in the game's history where we're just seeing such brilliance coming up into the sport, and it's really cool.
You also talked about the Will Smith extension with Alana, so I'll come at you maybe in a little bit of a different way. My main focus is on the years. You said it was the largest contract in terms of years ever given out to a catcher. We know why. I mean, ideally, if you sit down with the Dodgers, they're not going, we want this guy for 10 years. We want him when he's 38 years old. But we haven't talked a ton about the luxury tax stretching. It's the deferrals are one thing, the years are another. So do you think that trend will continue until it is stopped somewhere? Because we saw that last year be the big trend with guys like Bogarts and Trey Turner.
For teams that are in that financial position, yes, they're going to continue to do this because it does help them with the luxury tax. Just for people who don't necessarily know what we're talking about, a luxury tax payroll is calculated by average annual value of contracts, not a salary in a given year. So by stretching this, the average annual value of this contract is $14 million a year. And then when you factor in the deferrals for luxury tax purposes, that number is even lower. So yeah, that's why they do it. And I don't know that it's going to stop anytime soon unless they change the rules, Scott. And I don't know that they necessarily will change the rules or should change the rules. Teams have the right to operate however they want and distribute their money however they want. We know the Dodgers are going to be paying some crazy number from 2033 on with all their deferrals, but that's what they are choosing to do. And as long as they don't go bankrupt, which I don't expect that they will, everything should be fine.
But the deferrals, they've been going on forever. It's not really my question. It's more of just a comment. Now you're just hearing about it when the best player in the game is getting a monstrous deferral. So I feel like you're right.
You're right, Eric. And it's nothing new going back to Bobby Bonilla. And even before then, they've been consistently included in contracts. And I wrote about this yesterday with Fabian Ardaya from The Athletic about what the Dodgers' thinking is and how they approach these things. It's just, in their mind, a way to offer players a different kind of structure. They can give a guy the high guarantee, but it's going to be maybe for less years or something along those lines. So this is the way they're going about it. And I'll give you an example. Teoscar Hernandez, okay? They wanted him at a certain luxury tax number. It was, I believe it was about $20 million. But they were willing to give him 25 on a salary because they were able to get to that number through deferrals, the luxury tax number. That's what the thinking is on these kinds of things.
All right. My question is, when we all meet, us four, because it's a new season, who is most likely to have the Pappy Van Winkle for us?
I would say AJ.
AJ. Yeah. Okay, fair, because that's
right. Because you ain't buying nothing. You ain't never bought nothing in your life, Ken.
That's two. That's two.
That is a lie, but I don't drink, so I'm not going to have the Pappy Van Winkle. I can guarantee you that.
Well, then AJ will have it. That's
AJ,
perfect.
Maybe I've never bought anything for you, but other people, yeah.
I've heard stories, Ken. I've heard stories.
Spreading rumors.
Anyway, Ken.
But hey, what Eric is referring to is the story we wrote today, Fabian and I, about the Dodgers offseason. It was a crazy offseason, and we got some pretty cool details, including details about a party at Brad Paisley's house in Nashville during the winter meetings in Nashville. Dodgers officials came, and then Rays officials joined them later. And let's put it this way. At Brad Paisley's bar in his barn, which is attached to his property, he has some pretty good liquor. And he was serving some of that. And he told the Rays, president of baseball operations, Eric Neander, listen, man, I'm a Dodgers fan. I want Tyler Glasnow. If you want that liquor up there, the really good stuff, deal gets done. That's the deal gets done liquor.
That's great. That's tremendous. But the part that I wanted to hit on, and it's just a tiny little quote in there, is, and I don't remember exactly who, somebody said, well, is he going to go for this? And he said, Mark really wants to win. Talking about Mark Walter. Mark Walter or Walters?
Walter.
Walter, owner of the Dodgers, really wants to win. Was that refreshing when you heard that? Because it's refreshing to me when I read it.
It was an exchange between Freddie Freeman and Andrew Friedman.
Right. That's right.
And it was at the start of the offseason. And a lot of teams do this. The GM or the president of baseball operations, whatever, calls veteran players, maybe even all players, to discuss the season that just passed and the offseason ahead. Freddie Freeman asked Andrew Friedman, what's the plan? And Friedman said, plan A is Ohtani and Yamamoto. Freeman said, whoa, is Walter going to go for that, meaning the owner? And that was Andrew Friedman's answer. And it was refreshing to hear that, obviously, but not surprising from the Dodgers. I'll give you a different example much more recently, the last few days. Ken Kendrick of the Diamondbacks. Just named him due to the week on Fair Territory because this is a guy who has authorized a lot of money being spent this winter by a team that generally is not a high payroll team. Granted, they're coming off a World Series appearance, but the other team that just appeared in the World Series didn't approach it that aggressively, though, of course, they've been aggressive before. So Kendrick, he's got a franchise record payroll, but he's got Jordan Montgomery, Eduardo Rodriguez, Jock Peterson, Eugenio Suarez. They're a pretty interesting-looking club, to say the least right now. Maybe the best rotation in the game when healthy. So it's always refreshing, Eric, to answer your question, when you see an owner committing at a time when he should be committing. That's my problem with the Marlins. They're coming off a playoff appearance, and they just gone backwards. That, to me, is unacceptable.
Ken, I have to ask you, have you seen your new thing that you have on this show? Have you heard about it?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Okay. Have you seen this? Your new emoji that you have now? Congratulations, you've officially arrived.
Thank you. I've been waiting my whole career for something like that to happen. So, yeah, it's pretty big.
Welcome to the digital world. It is actually
it
great.
actually is kind of small. It fits you perfectly.
It's normal size.
It is. We're all the same size emoji head, but whenever he comes on now, we get flooded with Ken emojis.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate it. Whoever's doing that, thank you.
It's all it's all your fans out there, Ken. Look at them all. Look at all highlights.
All five of them. That's great.
All five.
All right. You mentioned the Dodgers. You mentioned some of these other teams, the Diamondbacks making moves. A team that made a lot of moves were the Reds. They went out and they have Frankie Montas and made some pitching moves and brought in Candelario and some other moves to help them get over the hump because they just missed the playoffs last year. Now they lose McLain. What's next for the Reds? Because they've lost two starting infielders for them, more than likely, for a long time. One for 80 games we know of, and the other one we don't know about, McLain. So what's next for the Reds? India just slides in, takes over a spot. How is this going to work?
Well, it's interesting, AJ. I kept writing going back to last year that eventually they're going to have a problem. They're going to have a logjam of infielders. And then when they signed Candelario, it appeared that logjam would be even more extreme than it was. And yet, with Marte getting suspended and now the tough news on McLain, who is actually one of my favorite players to watch, it shows you the importance of depth. And we always know it's important, of course, but this team still has plenty of infielders. Yes, they can slide India in, and they're okay. But are they a better team with Matt McLain and, for that matter, Noelvi Marte? No question about that. So I would expect they'll be fine. They still line up Candelario, De La Cruz, India. They'll be okay. But, man, it's just tough to lose a guy like McLain who, in my view, is a future star here. Maybe even a present star if you want to look at it that way.
Do you think the Reds knew about this? I know it's hard to say, but about the Marte suspension? Because then they went out and signed Candelario. I don't know exactly the timeline when teams find out about suspensions. But and then McLain got hurt in spring training, so that also wasn't on the table. So they didn't know. They just went out and said, "We like Candelario. We kept India. We have 7 infielders now."
That's right. And AJ, it's not like a team hears about a player getting suspended 3 weeks before. Doesn't work like that. They hear pretty much the moment it happens. So they had no idea. And these circumstances are just the kinds of things teams face over the course of a season. Now, granted, not every team loses a player to a PED suspension for 80 games, but different things come up, injuries, all kinds of things happen. So that's why you build depth. And I would expect that if you had Nick Kroll, their GM, on tomorrow, he would say, listen, we were reasonably prepared for this, even though we don't want to lose good players ever. They've still got Christian Strand and Encarnacion as well. I missed him earlier. They've got Spencer Steer. They can do a number of things, but it's just a different look for them now.
I love Nick Kroll, by the way. If you say you're being competitive, that's a loser mentality. It's one of the great quotes I've ever heard. He said it on this show when we had him on. Mm-hmm. So good for him, and good for him for building depth in the organization. That's how you win nowadays. It's not about the 26 you start with. It's about the 45 you have in your organization.
Exactly.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Let's finish with this, Ken. Storyline maybe underrated that you're most excited about this coming opening day? Anything else that you've got on your mind? I feel like a ton of attention has been on the Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani. Do you think there's anything that we're either overlooking or that we should just highlight because the offseason is over?
Right. Scott, to me, one of the intriguing things of any season is which clubs will surprise. And I'll give you a few that I actually think might. Out of the AL Central, the dreaded AL Central, I'm not going to pick AJ's team, the White Sox.
You
but
bastard.
I expect that the Royals or the Tigers or both are going to be better than we think, in part because of the weakness of the division, and in part because they have done things, the Royals in particular, in spending money and fortifying their pitching to help them improve. With the Tigers, it's more young players coming forward, but they've also added as well Maeda and some others. So I do expect that those teams will be improved. Whether they're good enough to surprise, I don't know, but in the Central, maybe. And the other team I'm looking at is a team that I wrote critically about with Stephen Nesbitt earlier this spring, it was the Pirates. Now, the Pirates have not been run particularly well under Bob Nutting, and in large part that's due to Bob Nutting, their owner, as I said. But they too have interesting young talent, and they're a team that I don't know if they're ready to pop just yet, and I don't know if they will. But once they get Skeens up, it becomes interesting. They've got Jared Jones in their rotation now. They have other players coming into the mix as well. I don't know if they're going to be good, but I'm watching. Put it that way. I'm paying attention because I'm curious.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, eventually the rebuild has to end. It has to end eventually. It's been a long time. Yeah, it's a great city for sports too. It's a bummer.
It hasn't been that long.
Yes, it has.
It was what 15 they were last time they were in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's been a decade.
I mean, the Mariners went 2 decades.
It's almost a decade.
Yeah.
The Mariners went 2 decades.
True.
And we weren't talking about
them. That wasn't good.
And talks about the Pirates. Yeah. Blasphemy.
Blasphemy.
You don't see a drought that long. And I would make the case the Mariners have tried a little bit harder than the Pirates. It just wasn't working out for them.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
That's very fair.
Ken, before you go, you're in Houston on Saturday, correct? Make sure your credentials right because they will not let you in.
They don't know who you are, AJ?
No, not you. Not me. You.
Well, tell them the context.
Because Joe Girardi got denied going into the Astros clubhouse.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, that's a little weak.
That's
a little surprising.
I'm just saying this guy right here might get denied. They know me in Houston. See, when you get to go and like do the fancy schmancy games, I'm in Houston, right? When you do Yankees, Red Sox, I get Houston. So
what's
when
Houston
I walk
Yankees?
into
That's not fancy schmancy for you. That's my game.
Well, the Yankees, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Make sure you have your credential correct.
Are they for Joe today? Like, I don't think this is you.
I don't think. Wait, are you going to be in Houston with me in a couple weeks?
I will, AJ.
Wow.
How about that?
I can't wait. You're going to buy me.
Is that a fancy schmancy game, or is that just
who's going down and who's going up? Is AJ going up and Ken's stock is falling? What's going on here?
Yes,
a little of both, Eric.
Okay.
I love it. All right, so then we'll talk next week about that to get ready for the Ken AJ game. And apologies to anyone that has to call that game with AJ. He's going to be
It's
off
a
the
new
rails.
guy. It's a new guy.
Oh, it's a new
I don't
guy.
even know who he is, but
right,
I'm not going to spill his name yet.
Yeah, you're gonna have to
until
break
New
the
guy.
news.
breaks.
I'm sure whoever that new guy is will be delighted to hear himself referred to as the new guy.
He is. I've never
He's
done a
probably
game
like
with him.
38 years old, and he's like, it's some kid. Ken, thank you. Happy opening day. Great work on
You
Fan
too, guys.
Territory, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks. Talk soon.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.